What's your mission here, my friend? Talk to me before
I just want to talk to you.
But China is not an enemy of Africa. We have never been colonized by China. China was our protector.
This is the Maputo-Ketembe Bridge, an architectural marvel, and the longest suspended bridge in Africa. This stunning bridge, built by a Chinese company with funding from the Chinese Exim Bank, is just one example of the many infrastructure projects that China has been investing in on the African continent over the past 2 decades. Another notable example is the Mombasa Terminal, a key part of the Chinese-built Mombasa-Nairobi railway system that has helped to pave the way for Kenya's economic rebirth. These impressive projects are just a small part of China's massive investment in Africa, which began in earnest in 2001 and has only grown since then. In fact, by today, China had already granted over $100 billion in commercial loans to African governments, funding more than 5,000 critical infrastructure projects. Today, over 10,000 Chinese-owned companies are operating in Africa, and China is Africa's biggest creditor, accounting for a staggering 14% of the continent's total debt. Despite some criticisms of China's approach to investment in Africa, there is no denying that their impact has been significant. In 2018, China became Africa's largest trading partner, signaling a new era of economic cooperation between the two regions. You see, the US and China have very different perspectives when it comes to Africa. While the US views the continent as a land of many resources it can explore, China sees it as a land of opportunity and a good partner. It's a simple sentence that captures the essence of the divergent approaches both nations have taken toward Africa. After China launched its Belt and Road Initiative, it has attracted 149 countries worldwide, including 49 out of the 54 African nations. This has become a major concern for the US government. Africa is one of the richest continents in the world, endowed with some of the most valuable resources, minerals, and commodities. For decades, the US has had a strategic interest in Africa, but that interest has always been focused on the continent's resources, rather than its development. In this video, we will delve into some of the mistakes the US has made, and explore why many African countries are now looking to China for future growth.
Because we don't have job, that is why we are doing this dirty job.
The pirates come from little villages in the Delta, communities like these. Thousands of people live here in poverty and unsanitary conditions.
After the end of the slavery era, many African countries looked to their former colonizers for support and assistance in rebuilding their economies and societies. However, things did not always go as planned. Yet, instead of investing in the people and their well-being, Americans build military bases to safeguard their own interests. This is the harsh reality for many African nations, where precious resources like uranium, lithium, petroleum are mined to power the world, but the local people are left to languish in poverty and deprivation. Take Niger, for instance, where 1/3 of France's electricity comes from uranium mining. The irony is that just a stone's throw away from the mining site, the people struggle to afford basic necessities, let alone a healthy meal. And looming ominously over the landscape is one of the world's largest military air bases, a constant reminder of the power imbalance between those who control the resources and those who live on the land. The military presence serves a dual purpose: to protect the interests of the foreign powers, and to keep the local people in check, ensuring they don't rise up against the very forces that exploit them. The consequences are far-reaching, not just for the people but for the environment as well. The habitat is often destroyed, as mining and military operations take precedence over conservation and sustainability, which result in people losing their source of income. But when China approaches Africa, it approaches it with a different mindset. China's approach to the continent is vastly different from the traditional, take what you can get, mentality of many other nations. Instead of seeing Africa solely as a source of resources to be extracted, China values Africa as a vital partner in their own development. This mindset shift has not gone unnoticed. For many African nations, China is seen as a protector, rather than just another extractor. By building partnerships and investing in infrastructure, China is showing a genuine commitment to the sovereignty and dignity of African nations. It's an approach that's gaining traction, as African leaders increasingly see China as a viable alternative to the status quo. By focusing on building a mutually beneficial relationship with Africa, China is setting a new standard for foreign engagement. The continent is no longer seen as just a source of raw materials, but as a vital partner in a global community. It's a refreshing change, and one that offers hope for a brighter, more equitable future.
If one of your opponents who has a history of overthrowing your governments, who has a history of exploiting your natural resources unfairly, if that person suddenly put established military capacity in the middle of your country, how would you feel?